Hello everyone, this is Chad Wilson and you're watching this video for ENGI 2304. I want to talk about Response Journal 1 and just a little bit about Response Journal 2. Now both of these response journals are based on ABET accreditation. Now if you're not familiar with ABET, it is the accreditation board for engineering and technology. And being accredited by ABET means that an institution, the University of Houston for example, is able to have graduates that can stand for their licensure exams. Without that accreditation, the graduates cannot actually become engineers, licensed engineers. So our accreditation is very important in this process that we go through every 6 years to maintain our accreditation is basically the reason I was hired and why ENGI 234 exists. There are two main outcomes, ABET outcomes, that we assess for ENGI 2304. And these outcomes are the ability to communicate to a range of audiences, as well as all graduating engineers must recognize ethical and professional responsibilities. And they must be able to make judgments about engineering solutions in global economic, environmental, and societal contexts. Okay, so in other words, all graduates of the University of Houston must demonstrate the ability to communicate. That is what you're learning in ENGI 2304. But part of what you have to write about, including your Code of Ethics presentation and Response Journal 2, are ethics. You must have an understanding of engineering ethics. Response Journal 1 asks about that second part, about being able to make informed judgments about engineering solutions in global, economic, environmental, and societal contexts. So for Response Journal 1, you have to write an essay. Now, essay here is what you would generally write in English class. So this is a 2-page essay, or 500 words. This is a 500-word minimum, and try to keep to that. So in 500 words, you want to include a thesis that is backed up by reasons, which is demonstrated by evidence. Okay, so essays are based on this 3-tier case structure. The thesis is proven or demonstrated by reasons, which are proven or demonstrated with evidence. And this is how all informed argument works. Okay, it's based on that assertion, which has reasons for believing it, which are backed up with evidence. So when you go to write this essay, you want to use the knowledge that you've taken from your previous English classes. So it should have paragraphs. Should it be 5 paragraphs? It doesn't really matter. Should it have an introduction which leads to a thesis? Yeah, because that's how these things work. And then it should have multiple paragraphs and then a conclusion. So introduction, which leads to thesis, multiple body paragraphs, and then conclusion. So Response Journal 1, 500 words. I want you to come up with a problem that you can then look at the engineering solutions, because what you want to do is examine those solutions in either global, economic, environmental, or societal contexts. So I want you to specifically look at a problem at the University of Houston or within the city of Houston. And my example that I generally give is for scooters, for example. So I've had it happen to me when I'm walking around campus and all of a sudden I get startled because a scooter has just come up behind me and zoomed right around me. And I feel it's there's a danger to both the person on the scooter, where I could flail, I could turn, I could do anything and knock them off the scooter and get injured myself. So, are there any solutions you can think of for how to approach the problem of scooters at the UH campus? So I want you to look or go through those possible solutions and examine each one in global, societal, economic, or environmental contexts. Are all four of those going to be necessary to analyze for each solution? No, of course not. And maybe there is no global context for understanding a solution to scooters at the UH campus. Okay, so maybe it just doesn't apply. But for example, possible solutions are you could just ban them. They could be banned outright. Scooters are no longer allowed at the University of Houston. What are the implications of that? Well, students are going to have trouble getting around campus. Students who have purchased these things, they're no longer able to use them. There are probably other things you can tease out. Why get rid of a perfectly acceptable mode of transportation when there might be other possible solutions, such as maybe there are separate lanes, maybe the sidewalks are divided so that there are walkways and scooterways, or maybe they're only allowed on specific thoroughfares, or maybe scooters have certain rules that they're not allowed to exceed certain speed limits, or they're confined to certain times of the day, which is not when students are walking down certain sidewalks. And so then for any of the solutions that you come up with, maybe you want to pick just a couple potential ones, maybe 3. Go through and look at what are the economic implications of that? How much is that going to cost? Is that really feasible? And then what is the impact societally, like at the University of Houston? What is the change going to, what kind of disruptions is it going to cause? And so, and then environmentally, maybe, if global doesn't work. So maybe environmentally, if you're going to get rid of scooters but have more shuttles around campus, maybe that actually uses more electricity if they are electric vehicles, or maybe it uses more gas if they're gasoline vehicles, if you got rid of scooters but then instituted more shuttles. So this is where you're able to use your analytical mind to look at different solutions in those different contexts and tease out the implications of solutions, which will then demonstrate your ability to analyze the same things in an engineering situation. And for Response Journal 2, you're then going to look at, similar to the Code of Ethics, you're going to look at the NSPE code and a story and explain how it breaks or upholds different parts of the code. So that's what we're doing in these two response journals. They're both 500-word essays, which means they have a thesis that then body paragraphs that uphold that thesis, and a conclusion which summarizes or comes to a point. All right, good luck. I look forward to reading your stuff.